Howdy and welcome, folks, to today's KKE. As you can see, and as many of you are no doubt aware, we're talking about patching today, one of our most popular topics. And specifically, we're going to concentrate today on what's new in 6.3 about patching. We're not going to have time to teach you everything about patching today. We've got 4 excellent KKEs in the recording archive you could go watch. That'll teach you virtually everything you need to know, at least obviously the pre-6.3 features in patching, everything you need to know about setting it up and utilizing it. Patching step by step, patching week 101, patching week 201, and there's more than one way to patch. All of those can be found in the recording archive. You can watch them anytime you want to. So today we're going to concentrate on what is new and different and how it works in 6.3. And with me today is Andrew. Andrew, you want to say hello?
Hello, folks.
Hopefully we'll have a couple of our other compatriots join us today a little bit later. So let's jump right in. Our agenda, pretty small today. One, I'm going to do a quick review. I said I can't teach you everything about patching in today's session, but I can review some of the highlights, some of the most important things, some of the biggest stumbling blocks that people find. We can remove those from your way and just do a really quick review. And then I'm going to demo all of the new and cool and awesome features. And of course, as always, Q&A. But before we do, a few reminders in case you didn't know, 6.3 is released, hence the whole what's new in patching in 6.3 KKE. It has been released. It's available for download. It is a couple weeks old at this point. So, you know, it's getting more mature all the time. And Andrew's going to drop some links in chat, or a link in chat, where you can go read up about it later on if you want to. And our very own John Verboski did a recent What's New in 6.3 covering all of the new features and highlighting the patching features. Today we'll go more in depth on them. And then the K1000, of course, the current version of it and its RSA, remote site appliance, listed there as well. And folks, I just confirmed this morning those are the current versions available in the app stores for the K1000 Go app. Both of those are still accurate. Okay, so as I said, a quick review, going over just a couple of slides before we get into our demo. So first thing we need to understand is what patches really consist of when we talk about patching on the K1000. And they come in 2 parts. Okay, there may be more constituent parts we can talk about, but there's 2 main parts. One is the signature file. This is what the K1000 uses to determine whether a given machine needs that particular patch. It is a relatively small file, relatively meaning compared to the actual deployable patch package. It's a relatively small, virtually text file that tells the analyzing engine, the detecting engine, in this case the K1000, how to detect whether the machine needs the patch or not. Right? Check here, check there, check here, check there, and that tells us the outcome of those checks, tells us whether the machine needs it or not. Of course, it also has information relating to what type of patch it is and where it's from and what it's compatible with and all that kind of stuff. And then the patch package. This is the actual deployable, installable patch, what we usually mean when we refer to patches. But it's important, the distinction here, for a very important reason. And that is because when we first subscribe to patches in the K1000, if we're configured correctly, we're only going to get the signature files. Okay, that's it. We're going to get lots and lots and lots of them, thousands and thousands and thousands. Generally, I see about 7,000 to 9,000 on people's K1000s, depending on what they've subscribed to. These are all the signature files for all the patches that might be needed for our on our computers, all the ones that are compatible with our subscription settings. Right? We select the operating systems and whatnot, select the languages and the different patch types and so forth that we want, and then based on that, the K1000 downloads through Lumention all of the patches that are supported that are compatible with those settings. So we select Windows 7 and Windows 8 and so forth, right? Then we're going to get the patches that are compatible with Windows 7 and Windows 8, and the operating system patches, the application patches, etc., based on what we're subscribed to. So, patches for Office and Internet Explorer and Adobe and Apple and Java and all that kind of stuff, right? We're going to get lots and lots of signature files, all the patches that our machines might need, okay? Not a single installable patch at this point, not a single package. Again, if we're configured correctly. And then the next step would be to download, or rather to detect, based on these signature files, to have the K1 detect which of them are actually needed on our machines. Okay, it's going to take the list of the patches we tell it to use, go to the machines we tell it to detect on, and figure out of those which ones the machines need. Okay, it's only going to detect the ones that are compatible with the machine it's looking at the moment, and out of that's going to come a list of the patches that the machine already needs, still needs, the ones it already has, et cetera, et cetera. Now that the K1000 has this information on all of our computers, now it can download only those packages for the patches that are actually needed on at least one of our machines. And this is going to result in a significantly fewer actual big honkin' take up all my disk space patch packages being downloaded. So you're getting thousands and thousands and thousands of signature files. You might literally only get less than 100 actual patches, because we only need the ones that are actually needed on our machines so that we can deploy those patches that are needed. And that's the bottom section here, right? So now we can deploy the needed patches to the machines that need them. We can set up a testing regimen so the patches get deployed to certain machines prior to going to the rest of our machines if we want to. Certainly don't have to, but we could do that. And setting up that kind of scenario and all the other scenarios you can ever imagine are covered in those other KKEs that I mentioned at the outset. Okay, so next step, the next big stumbling block is how the different schedules work, a deploy only versus a detect and deploy. Well, first of all, the difference we can see from the beginning, from the outset, is that a deploy is literally only a deploy, whereas a detect and deploy is both detect and deploy, right? So that's the first big difference, but everybody pretty much figured that one out. The difference that most people miss is that it's not quite that simple. There is another difference. So we know that a detect must happen before a deploy, or else the K1 won't download the necessary patches. And also, another reason we have to have a detect prior to a deploy is the K1's only going to deploy, no matter what you tell it to do. It can't possibly deploy a patch that the K1000 itself hasn't previously detected as being needed on that computer. You can't make it deploy a patch that the computer doesn't need, right? So the big difference, a deploy only, it's going to try to deploy as many of the patches as the machine needs as it can until the machine requires a reboot to proceed, right? So we're going to try to chain together as many patches as we possibly can. Maybe it's one patch. There are patches that don't live and play well with others. They literally have to be deployed all by themselves. Right? Then we get a reboot, and hey, now we can take more patches, right? It might be hundreds of patches. It might be that we can chain together a whole buttload of patches together. That's a scientific term, by the way, folks. Of patches together so that we can get potentially all the patches a machine actually needs in one go-round, okay? But regardless, it's one pass. Might be one patch, might be a billion patches, but it's one pass. When we get to the end, we get to the point that we have to stop, whether we've deployed all the patches or whether we've only deployed some of the patches the machine needs. When we get to the point we have to reboot, the deploy schedule is done. Finito, el completo, that is it-o, no more patches-o. Okay? It is done. Right? until the next time the schedule is supposed to run, next week, next month, whatever. It's one single pass. Okay? Whereas a detect and deploy, okay, we've already mentioned that a detect and a deploy obviously does both a detect and deploy, whereas with a deploy only, you'd have to have a separate detect schedule. Okay? But the other big difference that's kind of obscured, right, is the fact that it's actually a cycle. It's going to do the detect, and it's going to do the exact same deploy. Okay? It's going to go chain as many together as we can until the machine requires a reboot or until we've deployed all the patches that it needs. Here's the difference. When it hits the stopping point because the machine requires a reboot, it is then going to wait, sit there and wait until the machine gets the reboot. And it comes back up, okay, whether the reboot is immediate or 5 years from now. Whenever the next time that machine reboots comes back up, and the Dell case agent starts, right? It's going to do a really quick little blip with the K1 and say, hey, anything else for me to do? Yep, do it again. Detect and deploy. Okay, it's going to do another pass, as many patches, as many of the needed patches as we can until the machine requires a reboot, and then it's going to stop, of course. If the machine immediately reboots or reboots later on down the road, whatever, the instant it comes back up and the agent service starts again, hey, K1, anything for me to do? Yep, do it again. So it's a patch and reboot, patch and reboot, patch and reboot. Okay, so I talk about how to use these two different schedule types in all kinds of different scenarios so that you can have some machines be more or less interactive with the users and some be completely hands-off or hands-off to one degree or another. In those other KKEs, I go in detail in lots of different scenarios, talk about everything, okay? I cannot strongly enough recommend that you go watch those 4 KKEs to teach you how to use all of this stuff, okay? So now that our review is done, now let's see all those awesome new 6.3 features, okay? All right, so let me share my K1000. Andrew, please let me know when you see it. Andrew, we good?
Yes, looking good. Sorry, I was muted.
I figured as much. All righty, cool. So let's head on over to security. And the first thing you're going to notice, hey, this is new, right? We now have patch download settings instead of being over here on our settings module. All gone now. You'll notice also the Dell Updates subscription download settings are no longer here either. We go back to security, Dell Updates. Hey, there it is. Okay, and in patch management, there it is. So same settings. There's nothing really super new here. Okay, it's just you don't have to go to settings anymore, which is really handy. They're here where they belong. Okay. So next step, let's go into our subscriptions, because this is probably going to be the biggest kind of shocking change here in terms of your visual noticing what's going on, visually noticing what's going on here. Okay, notice we don't see a gigantic list of operating systems anymore, right? What we have is some hidden options, I suppose you could say. Activate new patches is now at the top instead of down at the bottom. Okay, and then we've got an option to select different operating systems, and so it's now in a little bitty window, and you can still pick and choose the ones that you want. You can select Windows and then pick and choose whichever ones you want, just like the old way, or you can choose to let your software inventory, which knows what operating systems currently show up on your machines, okay, let it determine that. And this is for the vast majority of customers, and I only say vast majority instead of all because I haven't come up with a legitimate scenario where you should pick and choose operating systems, okay, but at least the vast majority of our customers should choose to let software inventory control this. And the reason is, once you get some service pack deployed to one of your operating systems. Let's say SP1 comes out for 8.1 or SP2 or something like that, let's say. Well, that's a brand new operating system that's never been subscribed in patching before. It shows up in inventory for the very first time, and all of a sudden, those machines won't patch anymore because they're not subscribed to, because you've gone in and manually chosen particular operating systems, right? Well, if you choose all Windows in inventory, then the minute that some new OS shows up, it's going to be supported, patches are going to be downloaded, and it's going to be part of your patching regimen. Not to mention, of course, the same kind of thing when you're no longer have any machines of a particular OS flavor, right? Then we unsubscribe from those automatically because they're no longer active in inventory, right? So that's by far the best way to go for most customers. Similar, you've got the Mac thing here, okay? And for those of you who have been asking repeatedly, notice we have 10.10 support now in 6.3. Okay, so it's there. Similarly with our languages, right? We've got a sub-menu now. This one doesn't have the option, unfortunately, for all languages that show up in inventory, but you do still have the same kind of choice options. Okay, so very much simplified here now. It's going to be a boon for most of our customers. Notice that something came through in chat. Chris said, I select only OSs I want due to space issue on remote hosts. Chris, that likely means, I've got to believe that what that means for you is over here on your download settings, you're not choosing that. Okay, if you're choosing that, we're only going to download the patches you need. They're not going to take up any space. We're not going to be downloading. If you choose this, then we're downloading the patch package files and the signature files for every single patch you're subscribed to. Remember in the beginning I said thousands and thousands and thousands of signature files, but only the actual patch packages that actually take up disk space that you need, well, that's this option here. If you've got that option selected, then I can't imagine a scenario where you need to get picky about the OSs and not subscribe to OSs you actually have and subscribe to OSs you don't have by being, manually choosing them. So as long as you've got the new option, then we're only going to download patches that are actually necessary and only going to replicate them to your replication shares. And if we don't have a patch on the K1, we can't replicate it to replication shares. Now, Chris, if you're talking about getting picky with which OS patches you replicate to your replication shares, well, that's a totally different issue, right? If we go here to distribution real quick, and we see replication, and I pick my replication share, no problem at all with getting picky here, right? Because if I don't have any of these machines over there and none travel when it's time for them to patch, right, then no problem not replicating those to keep the replication share pared down, right? But in terms of the patch subscriptions, no reason I can really think of to get picky there. Okay, I hope that helps. All righty, cool. You are welcome, Chris. Okay. So the operating system patches now, okay, so we've already chosen up here with subscription, right? The patches, when they're released by the vendor, they're listed as being compatible with certain OSs. Even if they're a patch for an application, they're still listed as being compatible with a particular OS flavor and language and whatnot, right? So when we choose up here, even though we're choosing specific OSs, we're not just saying patches for the OSs. Right? We're saying what OSs I have, and therefore if there's a patch for Adobe Reader, which I have, but it's for an operating system I don't have, then obviously I don't need that particular patch, right? So this is a master list of all the patches that are available through K1000, right? And the OSs I have, so I only need potentially the patches that are compatible with those OSs. So that's what we've chosen so far. Now we come get a little more picky. There are patches that are marked as patching the operating system, and then there are patches that are marked as patching an application. So that's the two sections here, and I can get a little more picky if I want to. Let's start with OS patches. So the two types are non-security and security. I can only select security if I want to, right? Or I can select all types, which in most cases, and I'm being generous here, folks, most cases is by far the best way to do because what you probably aren't aware of, if you haven't heard me talk about patching in the past, is those are meaningless terms. Security, non-security, critical, recommended, even OS versus app, those terms are not well defined like you might think they are. This comes as a shock to a lot of people, but if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. If you go to Microsoft.com or Adobe.com or Apple.com or Oracle.com and you search for the definition of critical or recommended or security or non-security or even OS patch or app patch, you're not going to have a good time. You're not going to find any consistent definitions. And even if each vendor had those consistent definitions, they wouldn't agree with each other. And even if they did, they wouldn't agree with you. Okay? Those terms are literally quite meaningless. Okay? We get bogged down in those things, and what we end up doing is having an unsecure environment because we only do security-related patches because we think that, well, that'll close all our security-related holes, not knowing that there are tons of patches we would consider as being security-related that aren't marked as such. Okay? There are tons of patches that would be critical to us that aren't marked as critical, and vice versa. And even what constitutes an OS patch versus an app patch, right? So, for instance, Internet Explorer, is it an installed application or part of the operating system? The answer is yes. It is both, depending on what day you ask Microsoft and what the context of your question is, right? It's considered part of the operating system, so why it's not listed as an installed application in inventory, right? Because Microsoft doesn't list it as an installed application in Windows. Yet the patches for it are marked as application patches. And we're not talking about upgrading here, folks. We're talking about a patch. I have Windows 8. I need a patch for, I have Internet Explorer 8. I need a patch for Internet Explorer. I don't need it upgraded to IE 9 or 10 or 11 or whatever, right? So the patches for Internet Explorer are marked as application patches. You might not have known that. Okay, same thing, .NET, Silverlight, etc. Other things you might consider as part of the operating system or plugins or extensions of the operating system, the patches for those things are considered application patches. Okay, so it's going to be a real difficulty in clearly defining what is an OS patch versus an app patch. But it gets even worse than that, folks. Operating system service packs are application patches. I kid you not. I'm not lying to you. I'm telling you the truth, I promise. Okay? So when you start getting all bogged down in the definition of these words because you think you know the definition that the vendors adhere to, you're in for a bad time. Right? So when you start getting picky about what I get and what I don't get, you run the risk of having a very, very insecure environment. The whole point in patching is to get the patches I need on the machines that need them so that I can have a secure environment. Right? So, but you can still get picky. You cannot let the K1 just choose all in all. You can get picky if you want to. The one thing I'm never going to recommend you choose is that box right there. Okay? Maybe 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of our customer base, it makes sense to do this and then sign up for massive daily management of patching. But it probably doesn't make sense for you, okay? As long as we don't choose this, patching is patching. Whatever OS and app you have, that's what you get patches for. You do not get new things installed, and you don't get upgraded to newer versions. As long as we choose only non-security and security, then we're getting patches. We're not getting software installers. Those of you familiar with Windows Update.com, MicrosoftUpdate.com, and you go there thinking you're going to get patches, and all of a sudden you've got the latest version of .NET and the latest version of Internet Explorer, et cetera, et cetera. right? Well, this is that on steroids, because remember, we don't just support Microsoft patches. We support Adobe and Apple and Java and all kinds of other stuff. Do you want all of their stuff installed on every one of your machines too? Probably not, right? So we want to stick with just these two. Everything else, we can be comfortable with alls. Here's a new thing in 6.3. Never seen this before. Now you know all of the patch vendors that we support for patching, right? You know we've always supported Microsoft and Adobe and Oracle /Sun/ whatever, whoever owned Java before Sun did, right? But you can see here revealed to you all the other things that we support. Most of these we've been supporting for a long time for patches, but you just couldn't see them in this kind of concise list. There's lots of stuff. Most of the corporate style applications you're going to have on your machines, we support for patching, okay? So we could not get the Apple patches if we didn't want to for whatever reason. But here again, right, do we want something patched so that we close any potential hole? Even if we shouldn't have it on our machines, we probably still want to patch it until we can get it removed? Or do we want to get picky and leave potential security holes in place? Right? But the cool thing is this is much simpler now in 6.3. Right? It's much, much simpler to choose from here. We still have the ability to filter by label if needed. Okay. We still have the ability to have it automatically inactivate superseded patches, and we should, because superseded patches have been replaced by another patch for a reason, right? But it's much, much simpler now, okay? Cool. Chris points out in chat that patch names are not consistent, especially Adobe. Some include the package ID name, some not. That's correct. Unfortunately, we don't have any control over that, Chris. That's Adobe's fault, Microsoft's fault, etc. They are not consistent in naming, and I doubt if they ever will be, because they're not consistent in anything else, my friend. So, all right, next up, the patch catalog. Some really cool stuff in here now, folks, okay? First of all, notice the show menu. That is brand new, okay, never before. We've had the view by for a long time, okay, but the show is completely new. And what this is you're used to just seeing individual patches. And if I change to that, and of course, I'm going to change to all patches, not just 2015, not just the current year, there's 6,798 patches that I'm subscribing to. Yes, Chris, it is still defaulting in the view by to the current year. Frustrating, I know. 6,798 individual patches that I'm subscribed to. Okay, these are based on my subscription settings, the patches my machines might need. Okay, but if I change to individual applicable packages, okay, it rolls it up into 95 different packages, right? So you can see that a lot of patches are related. A lot of patches are part of the same package. And I can click on any package, and I'll see, look, there's 22 patches that are part of just this one package alone, okay? So a lot of you have asked for bulletins or roll-ups. That's exactly what this is. That's what a package in our parlance is. Okay? Cool. And Chris, if you mean column selectable in terms of sorting, yes, you can click on any one of these columns and sort A to Z, click it again, sort Z to A. Okay? So I want to show you something. Another new thing is the compliance. Okay, the compliance column, right? This is new in 6.3. It's really cool. So all the machines that need that particular patch have it. 4 of my machines that need this patch have it. 1 doesn't yet. Okay, I can see 80% compliance. It's really cool. I can sort by that compliance column if I want to. I can do searching, labeling on the compliance information if I want to, etc. Right? I can report on it, all that kind of stuff. So I can see that now at a glance. I always could have figured out the math myself by looking at these three columns. They've been there forever, right? But now I can just tell at a glance. And you see we'll get green, yellow, and red. I'm not sure. Of course, less than 100% is going to be yellow, but I'm not sure when the red kicks in. I don't know. I'll have to look that up, folks. Okay, but that's really, really cool. So I can see things based on applicable packages. I can see things based on the actual individual patches themselves that make up the packages, etc. And let me show you an example of what I was talking about earlier, the delta, the difference between the patches my computers might need based on what I've subscribed to and what my machines actually need based on what they already have and what they still need to get. Right? So right now I'm seeing all the individual patches that my machines might need. Okay? 6,798. Now I'm going to change to only the ones that are downloaded. Remember, I'm only downloading packages that actually are needed on at least one computer. So out of 6,798 patches my computers might need, I need 64. 64, because I'm doing patching on a regular weekly and monthly and so forth basis. And look at this. A lot of those I actually don't need anymore. And since I've got delete unused patches after 30 days turned on, about a month from now, all these patches will be deleted from my K1000. Signature files will stay around, and I'll keep detecting, and that way if somebody needs it again, I'll re-download it, get it deployed, etc. So if we sorted by compliance, I'd actually find out that a lot of these 64 actually aren't needed anymore. I need very, very few patches because I'm doing weekly and or monthly patching with my K1000, and I let it control all of that. Right? I don't get picky in what I need and what I don't need, so I'm getting full spectrum patching. All right? Okay, so lots of really cool stuff here in the patch catalog. All right, let's switch over to patch schedules. This might be the biggest, most coolest feature for most of our customers, is this right here. You see those columns, folks? Go ahead, you're muted. You can scream hallelujah. Okay? You're not going to disturb anybody except people where you work. Right? We got these right here: pending, downloading, executing, rebooting, pause, succeeded, failed, and offline. So this is going to be near real-time feedback at the end of each step, right? When you tell a machine to detect, when you tell a machine to deploy, detect and deploy, etc. In the middle of each stage, at the end of each stage of those jobs, of those functions, it's going to report back where it's at, what the results are. So near real time, I can just literally be watching this page. And of course, I can turn my auto refresh on, right, and be watching this page and see where my computers are in the task, right? Are they pending? So the job has been scheduled, but the machine hasn't begun doing it yet. Is it downloading patches, either the first pass or the second pass or the third pass or whatever? When it's actually detected what is needed, it's downloading only those packages from the K1000, and then it's going to set about deploying. Now it's executing the detect or the deploying. It's rebooting as part of one of my schedules. Or it's been snoozed by a customer, okay, by the end user. Or it's finished, completed, at least with the current cycle, and it succeeded. It's finished, completed, at least with the current cycle, but it failed, or it's offline, okay? And then, of course, how many of the devices completed the cycle, or how many of the tasks in the schedule are completed, okay? That's what this number is showing you, all right? So notice there are hyperlinks, folks. You see that? So I can click on one of these. I'm going to open it in a new tab. And it takes me to inventory and shows me only those 4 machines. So I can see right at a glance. And of course, I can drill down into any one of those computers, scroll down to the security section, patching, detect, deploy status, and I can see where we stand. So these 2 are scheduled to be deployed the next time the schedule runs. Okay. These are the ones that are scheduled to be rolled back from the machine, nothing. These are the ones that when we tried to deploy them, we got an error. Nothing on that particular machine. These are the ones that are still missing. So generally speaking, missing and deployment scheduled going to be the same patches. These are the ones that are already installed. There's a bunch of them. Okay, scroll down for days, right? And these are all the categories of the patches related to this computer. Okay, so I can quickly drill down directly from my patch schedule and see which machines are going on, like this one here that failed. Okay, let me click on that. It's just this one machine. Scroll down, patch detect deploy status, and it errored out when it was uploading the log. Okay, of the log being the status, what happened, you detected these, deployed those, etc. Right? Okay. So I had an error during that particular one, but as you can see, my most recent detection, right? There's nothing that the machine needs. So I did have a problem uploading after the most recent deploy schedule. This is a deploy only schedule. But the next time my detect ran, it said, hey, we might have had some sort of weird blip or error or something on the last log upload, but the detect everything, the machine has everything it needs. So in this case, if I just get that error one time, if I get it every single week on this machine, I'd probably worry and go try to figure out what's going on. But I can just chalk that up to one maybe network error right at the moment that that machine was trying to upload when all the other machines are fine. And my last detect showed I'm cool on patches, so I'm not going to worry about it, right? And I can tell that inside of 30 seconds because of this. How cool is that, right? Pretty stinking cool, right? And then finally, one more thing. On any of our deploys or detect and deploys, notice we now have a snooze until limit on the alert. We've never had that. So an end user, if you allow the snooze option, right, then the end user can, they could snooze it and just continue to snooze it every 5 or 10 minutes or whatever you put in here and just keep snoozing, 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 and essentially never actually allow the patches to deploy. Right? Well, now we have this snooze until limit, so you can let them snooze X number of times. So I need to turn on notify. There we go. Now I can let them snooze X number of times, right? And then at the end of that, it's going to just proceed on with the actual patching. So they only get so many snoozes, and then the patching's going to proceed. Okay, don't have to turn it on, but now we can. Now you've got the option. Okay, so that's a quick rundown of all of the new features and a little bit of an explanation on each of them. And so that's everything I prepared for the live demo, and I wanted to leave plenty of time for your questions and issues and problems and so on. So now I'm going to ask Andrew, first of all, if we have any chat and Q&A that we need to address, and then to unmute everybody's mic, and we can have some live roundtable Q&A about anything related to patching, folks. So, Andrew, anything we need to address before we open up mics?
I've got a few things in Q&A if you want to take a quick look there.
Okay.
See what you might have answered and what you might not have.
Does the filter by label further restrict the patches you're subscribing to, or does it add to the patches you're subscribing to? Okay, Sandy, it's a good question. So if we go back here to patch management, and we go to subscriptions, and we come down here, okay, this is a negative label. Okay, this is the criteria of this label. Let me close this tab here. Let me open that up. I'm going to come down here to the bottom, the Smart Label, Patch Smart Label, and Edit in Smart Label Wizard. This is patches that that are not Java patches. So in my case, it's unsubscribing from patches I would ordinarily have subscribed to with these settings at the top of the page. Okay, but I could have easily made it a positive label instead of a negative label, right, where it's only going to subscribe to the patches that are compatible with the label configuration. Okay? So that's what it depends on. Your question was, does it add to or take away from? Right? It depends on the label. Okay? Everything on this page acts like a giant funnel. We start at the top of the page very broad. Patches for all the operating systems that I have and whatever language I have the operating systems in. Okay? And that restricts it. Right? For instance, I don't have any Windows 2003 patches, so those are cut out. I don't have any Windows 2003 operating systems in inventory, so those are cut out right now. If there's 12 to 13,000 patches that the K1000 supports, right, because I don't have XP in inventory, I don't have 2008 in inventory, I don't have 2003 in inventory, I don't have Vista in inventory, right, etc., I'm already cutting out a large cross-section of those. So we come further down the page. All right, so out of the ones that are compatible with this part of the page, now we come down here, which types and impacts? Do we further restrict, or are we keeping it the same? With my configuration, we're keeping it the same as above. Down here, we are restricting it by one item. We're not including software installers. We're only choosing patches. So we've further tightened the funnel down, and then we come down here. And when we add this label, or these labels, if I choose multiples, right? When I add this label to everything above it, I'm further tightening the noose. Only out of this pool, ones that match or don't match, whichever I've got a positive or negative label. Okay, I hope that helps, Sandy. Okay, so after that, Shannon asked, by the way, I think you can mark her, Andrew, the other two, because they were continuations. Sandy's other two Q&As, you can mark those as answered.
Yep.
What is the timeline for an accurate, what is the timeline for an update is released from vendor till case is able to grab it? So excellent question, Shannon. We have some general guidelines on our website in a KB article you can go find at support.software.dell.com, but there are no official SLAs. Lamention's actually vetting all of the patches, and obviously you can't vet a patch in 0 time. So if N is when the vendor releases the patch, then it's going to be N plus X, right? Some patches they can vet sooner and quicker than other patches will take longer, right? So generally speaking, if I was just going to kind of talk off the top of my head, you're looking at a couple of days to a couple of weeks. You should expect most patches to hit the K1. Okay, Shannon?
Ron, still just take a quick look at Sandy's as you go through.
Sure.
I might have marked them answered by accident.
With the new option to select patch vendors, does the filter by label further restrict the patches? Okay, so we addressed that one. All right, now let's not use a negative example. Example in 2 ways. In the application vendor list, I select Apple, then I have a patch label, Apple iTunes, which matches patches for iTunes and QuickTime, but not Safari Bundle. No, you're not going to get all Apple patches. Remember the funnel as we go down. So, all right, and then or only the patches that match my patch label. Yeah, okay, so we've already addressed that. All right, cool. So Wendell asked, I see that error very often, error log upload failed since installing 6.3. So you want to check out our KB articles. I do believe there's one on the, an updated one. I know that we have one on previous error messages, but there's an updated KB article, I do believe, Wendell, on the various error messages that come out of patching, like error log upload failed, that give you the reason for that. Generally speaking, it's either a network issue or DNS or something like that. Or a network issue. That's pretty broad. Like it can't communicate over 80 or 443, whatever it's using to upload the log to the K1000. Maybe there was a blip in network communication or something along those lines. But you can check out our KB article, have more detail on that. If you can't figure it out and you can't get it solved, Wendell, then definitely open up a support ticket because there may be a more serious issue that the case support team needs to take a look at. All right, is the completion message notification actually working in 6.3? Brian asked this question. As far as I know, Brian, it works on mine. Okay, I'm unaware of any sort of known issue or bug or anything with regard to that. So if you have that issue, then I'd be willing to talk about it, but that might be something I want to open a ticket about. Has the weekly schedule been fixed for the custom schedule setting Thursday after the second Tuesday for patching? Sherry asked this question. So 2 answers to this. First of all, as I just mentioned, as I alluded to, Sherry, you can forget about second Tuesday. Right? I mean, truth be told, it was never, ever an issue. It was never a big deal because Microsoft rarely ever hit the deadline. Tons of patches they would release each and every month that weren't on the deadline, weren't on Super Tuesday. But now, because Lumention is standing between you and the vendors, and none of the other vendors ever even pretended to have a Super Tuesday, they just release patches on willy-nilly, now you can completely stop ever worrying about that. Push patches out on your schedule, weekly, monthly, etc., right, as we covered in the other patching-related KKEs and in your Jumpstart and so forth. And whatever patches are available for your computers and needful for your computers at that particular point in time will get deployed to your machine, so don't worry about that. Now, as far as the actual meat of your question and the custom schedules that run using a flavor of cron tab under the hood, right, that issue, we do not fully support all the features of cron tab. That has not changed in 6.3. What we are working for in the future is a much better scheduling engine in the K1000 for all the different things that can be scheduled that give you more or less a graphical way of figuring out when you want items, tasks to run, and then we worry about under the hood how to make it actually happen. At which point, when we get to include that feature in a future version of the K1, then you don't have to worry about, whether we support full cron tab or not. You're just going to pick and choose what you want, like the second Tuesday or whatever, and then we make it happen however we have to make it happen under the hood. Okay? All right, cool. Now, Bradley asks, you may have already addressed this, but do you activate new patches or manually activate new patches? So, Bradley, do you have something to do every day, or are you just bored for 8 hours a day and you want to manually approve patches every single day? Yeah, I didn't think so, right? So let the K1 automatically activate them, right, because they can't be detected for and they can't be deployed if they're not active. And that means you have to come and activate them manually one at a time, right? So then what we need to what you can do is have the K1000 automatically activate them, but automatically deactivate the superseded patches, right? So they've been superseded, then you don't want them deployed. And then it's automatically taken care of for you. Right? You don't have to sign up for manual, potentially daily management of patching in the K1000. The way I have you set it up, it's completely automated. You can even set up a completely automated testing regimen, so patches get tested on machines before they get deployed, and you have plenty of time to go and catch them. If they're causing a problem in your test environment, mark them as inactive so they won't get deployed to your production machines. I teach you how to do that in those patching-related KKEs that we talked about. Okay, Cynthia asks, so if we remove labels, updates will go to all systems in inventory. So Cynthia, need to be a little bit more specific here. Okay, labels, you talk about the labels of computers or the labels of the patches, right? So if you, in your patch schedule, you get to pick which machines are going to be detected or deployed in that particular schedule. If you're talking about here on the patch subscription settings, this is labels of patches, not labels of computers. Okay, so these are the patches that otherwise would be subscribed to based on what I've chosen on this page, but I want to remove them from my environment. I don't want those patches. I want the K1 to pretend like they don't exist. Don't download them. Don't detect the need for them. They don't exist. They've never existed, right? So that's what that is there. Okay, Sandy, as far as I know, I've completely answered all of your questions. If there's still something you've got, please feel free to drop it again into Q&A or chat. Looks like while I was talking, we got several of chat questions, Andrew.
Yep. I'd start with Ann. She's got a few questions.
Sandy did redrop her question in chat. I've already addressed it, Sandy, but I'll go ahead and address it again. If I have another patch label, Acme Writer, which matches patches for Acme Writer, will I get these in my subscription if I do not select Acme in the application vendors list? No. Remember, all these settings on the page combine. They work with each other, right? So if I unsubscribe from Acme, but the label says Acme, then I've canceled the two out. I'm not going to be getting Acme, right? So all the whole page acts like a giant funnel, right? They all work together, all of the settings here. All right, so chat, you said start with Ann, Andrew?
Looks like that way, yep.
Okay, Ann, all right. Okay, currently using the 6.2 version. I want to perform upgrade to 6.3, but as per tech support, she told me that she don't advise to perform upgrade yet due to live environment until further notice. The newer version looks better, more detailed, especially the patching. Is there any issue? Out of 1K nodes, 40 machines with agent. Do you suggest upgrade before I add more machines? Okay. I don't know why the support tech would have told you to not upgrade to 6.3 for now. There may be a specific issue you are having, and that would be the reason tech support would recommend not upgrading at this time until they resolve your issue. If that's not what's going on, then I don't have any clue why they would tell you not to upgrade. 6.3 is fully supported. It's fully GA. We had 3 rounds of release candidate or beta testing. It's very, very mature, so I don't know why you shouldn't upgrade. Okay. Our license is NFR, and she told me got the same problem as 6.3. NFR, not for resale, I guess. I don't really know what that means for you, Ann. I would suggest contacting the support tech and getting clarification there. Okay. There may be a specific reason they wanted you to hold off on that. By the way, folks, Shane dropped the link into chat for the release dates, the release times for patches. So if you were interested in that question, you can click that link in chat there. All right. Okay. Chris asked some questions after Ann, it looks like. What, if any, changes or modifications are made to subscribe patches over downloaded patches? I'm not sure I understand your question, Chris. Andrew, you want to unmute mics, and that way Chris can just respond audibly. Yep. Folks, before he does here, or there, never mind.
Say your bit.
This is
Chris. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to know whether or not, like a downloaded patch from Java, how is that different than a subscribed one?
Okay, so if I go back into my patch catalog and look at okay, so if I come here to all patches, okay, these are subscribed to. Remember, these are ones, look, the size is 0. Okay, that means that I have the signature file only for this patch.
What I'm asking is, what changes have been made to the actual patch? What is being installed? Obviously, in a Java patch, hopefully they're removing any additional software that Java normally stuffs in with their particular patches.
You mean, are they clean installers? Yes. Lumention vets all of them.
They don't have, automatic updates have been turned off in them?
No. That's a completely separate issue, right? The updates themselves are packaged cleanly. Whatever the update does, the update does. Whatever the patch does, the patch does.
I mean, like, what I'm saying is that when you have a patch or you have an update to Java, it automatically has its own updater that's installed with it. Is that been turned off so that I don't have to compete with 2 different patchings?
No. What you need to do, what we recommend for customers with these auto updaters, because we have no control over those, the mission has no control over those, right? The vendor makes the patch, and they make the patch do whatever the patch does. Right? We don't reverse engineer them and take pieces out that might break them or whatever. What we recommend is using K1 scripting to disable all of the Adobe and Java and even Windows auto-updating functionality. All of that kind of stuff can be disabled. Relatively simple, simply using the K1 scripting module. There's tons of information at IT Ninja that will help you quickly set up scripts that will disable these auto-update functionality bits, right? And then you just have them run periodically, not a one-time thing, because as you already called out, each time you update or patch many of these applications, they re-enable the auto-updating functionality. So this may be scripts you want to run daily or weekly or whatever, right, depending on how often you are patching your computers. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yes, it does. It hasn't worked very well in practice, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay. If you're having trouble with some of the information that you're finding at IT Ninja, okay, then two things. One, I would go back to where you found it on IT Ninja and post a question. Right? Ask, hey, this doesn't seem to be working for me. I'm getting behavior XYZ. Anybody else got any advice on that? Okay, the very collaborative environment out there. Everybody's perfectly willing to help out. Okay. Secondly, if you let us know ahead of time by sending an email to kketeam@case.com, or you can go to case.com/KKE and click Contact the Training Team. Either way, let us know that you're going to come to a future open forum, like the ones we have the last Thursday of every single month, and you'd like to talk about a specific setting you found at IT Ninja. In the email, send us a hyperlink. We will research it, we will test it, and we'll be prepared to talk about it in the future open forum.
Stellar.
Cool?
Very good.
Awesome. All righty. Okay, looks like we've got some more Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sandy asked, is your patch schedule all machines daily detection? Go over there and show it. Just for demonstration purposes, or does it run to help build the list of patches to subscribe to? Should we be doing this? Mine is not for demo, but then I have a small environment. Okay? Now, speaking in general terms, Sandy, patch detections are not resource intensive, not on the K1, not on your network, and not on the computers it's running on. Generally speaking, I don't know the particular details of your computers and your computing environment and whatnot. You may have really old PCs, 10, 15-year-old PCs all running Windows 98, right? I don't know. But generally speaking, on the modern recent computers, you're just not going to notice that a detection is running, okay? And now, because we're not using many resources to run the detection, it can take quite a while to run, right? Depending on the machine, depending on how hard the user's using the computer at the time, because we don't want them to notice what we're doing, because we don't want them to suffer, right, when what they're trying to do while we do the detect, we don't use many resources, okay? So my daily all machines detection runs on literally all of my machines, servers, everything, okay? All my devices, detect only, detect everything, okay, even the Java patches I might not want to deploy, and run on next connection if offline. It runs at 5 a.m. So my patch downloads happen at 3 a.m., okay, my subscription, my signature file downloads. So by 5, they're all well downloaded, no problem. I can run my detection at 5. Some of my machines are not online at 5. So it runs whenever they connect later on, okay? You definitely need to have this kind of schedule running frequently. What frequently means to you might be a little bit different. In a best practice, best case scenario, yes, absolutely have exactly this schedule running exactly as I show you. But that might need to be tweaked for some of the particulars in your environment. Okay? So every single day, my K1000 is getting notified, getting updated. It might be in the morning, it might be in the afternoon, it might be at night, whenever the machines show up. Every single day, my K1 is getting updated on what patches my machines need, because try as I might, like Chris was mentioning, try as I might to have only the K1 in total control of patching. Right? I disable all the Windows update stuff so my end users never see, hey, there's Windows patches for you. Disable all that stuff. Right? I disable all of the Adobe and the Java and all that all those auto updaters so my users never see that. But through no fault of their own or no fault of my technicians, machines can still get patches or get patches removed when my K1 isn't doing it, right? If To troubleshoot a machine, a tech uninstalls Office and reinstalls Office, but then doesn't repatch. Well, guess what? That machine now needs a whole bunch of patches that I didn't know it needed before, because the last time I ran the detection, it had all the Office patches, right? Those kinds of scenarios, perfectly organic, perfectly natural, and perfectly legitimate, can happen, right? But I'm only actually deploying patches at best once a week, in some cases once a month. So I need regular detections. I don't want my deployments to accidentally reinstall a patch that I thought they still needed, but they got somehow some other way, or not install a patch that I thought they already had because it got uninstalled. I want regular detections. To me, that means daily. Okay? Might be overkill, right? But I can always, at any point, go look in my K1000 and see the exact, as of this morning or today, see the exact status of patches on my computers. Okay? Now, Cynthia says, if I filter to all patches, I see 3 from 2012. Should I submit a case to support? If you're in 6.3, Cynthia, and you're talking about here in the catalog, and you go to year, oh, dang it, let me move my chat window, and you go to year 2012, and you can see I have 834, but then you go to maybe applicable packages, and you only see 3, that's a good thing, right? That means you don't have many patches that are needed by your machines from that year. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but hopefully that helps. Dana said, follow up, no filters on my catalog at all. So you go to individual patches and you go to 2012 and you only see 3. Well, that depends on what you're subscribed to, right? So you want to go check your subscriptions page. And check, make sure your patch downloads are working. You might have something blocking your K1 from downloading patches, Cynthia. Okay, Dana said, follow up to the auto updates built into the patches. What about the toolbars and additional stuff that I can install with, for example, Java updates? Now, that stuff is clean, right? Just like you could go, it takes a little bit more work than just going to java.com and clicking the button. If you work a little bit harder, you could go find clean patching, clean updates for Java and other things that don't come with any of that junk bundled, Dana. That's the same kind of stuff that Lamention is providing us. Okay, it's going to be clean installers, not going to come with any of that stuff. But auto updating is built into the actual patch itself. That's not something we're going to reverse engineer. Okay?
And just to follow up with that, when you're looking for those kinds of applications, you're looking for offline installers, you're looking for enterprise or for business type of installers, and most companies will have that on a different location, or
you might have to dig for it.
Right.
Yeah, IT Ninja is your friend here too, Cynthia, with that. Okay, so Sandy asked the final question, different than the other ones. So maybe detect daily on a selection of typical machines? Maybe, Sandy, maybe. If I can, I'm going to do a detect on all. Because, what's typical, right? What's typical for my environment? What kind of variety do I have, right? So maybe, if that works for you. Okay, looks like I'm all caught up in chat and Q&A. Any to host onlys that you see, Andrew?
Nope. Everything looks pretty well. Everything looks pretty good.
All right, folks. Last chance. What else do you have? Going once. Going twice. All right. While we wait for the third, we'll cover some information here for you. In case you hadn't heard, Backyard Boot Camp is back for 2015, baby. I will be in Austin, Texas next week, leading our second one this year. We've already had Santa Clara, California. Or was it Aliso Viejo? I think it was Santa Clara. But we've also got some, we're going to be going back to Austin again later this year. We're going to be going to D.C., Chicago, New York, Canada, even over in the Netherlands. I think that's what NL stands for. So you can get all the detail, all the costs, everything at casebootcamp.com. Okay. Resources, resources, resources. We've already mentioned this several times. Of course, IT Ninja, support.software.dell.com for all the knowledge-based articles, downloading the new versions if you haven't upgraded 6.3, etc. Okay, case.com/KKE, the best site on the net. Uservoice.com, if you want to submit any feature requests that you'd like to see, any improvements. Maybe we've identified some things that could be done better, even better than what we got in 6.3. You let us know about it, and we'll try to get it included in future versions. Our InkPad newsletter, case.com/newsletter. You can sign up for it. You can see past editions. And a special invite-only link for the Connect Social Earn Points Win Free Stuff site for our KKEers. Connect.case.com/join/KKE. Alrighty, folks, so I said going once and I said going twice, and other than asking for lottery numbers in chat, I don't see anything else. And unfortunately, John has the lottery numbers this week, and he didn't show up to KKE. Sorry, Chris.
Actually, I'm right here, Ron.
Oh, dang it! Dang it, John!
You never noticed.
To be
I'm right
here.
here.
So it's not
I've been
John.
here I've been here the whole
Pace.
time.
It's Mike Pace. That's who has the winning lottery numbers this week. He's not here, right?
They're all here.
Oh, never mind. I tried to pull off a joke, and like usual, it fell flat on its face. All right, we got some upcoming KKEs, folks. Bear in mind, I'm hoping to have April scheduled the end of this week, so we'll have lots more coming up in the future. But the rest of this month, we got a support 411 with Shaney next week. So excited about that. That's always a popular one. Going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff related to case support and how to open tickets, how to deal with your tickets, how to find the resource you need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All kinds of cool stuff. Probably call it tips and tricks with Shane, actually. Then we got a European, English-speaking, but European team, really cool guys and gals, going to be doing a beginner's guide to service desk and then an advanced one a couple weeks later. And then I got a grab bag. What did Mike call it? I forget, some weird video game thing that I'm unfamiliar with. Going to be we called it Tips and Tricks with Ron. As it turns out, I should have called it Colson's Corner because that would have been awesome with K's, you know. But I missed that opportunity. And I'm just going to cover all kinds of cool stuff, folks. Just all my weird idiosyncrasies, my label stuff, my naming conventions, my patching, anything and everything. We're just going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff that I do. And then open forum, of course, the last Thursday of every single month. No topic, whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to see demoed, that's what we're going to do. Cool? Anything else, folks? Thank you. You are most welcome. I don't see anything else. I guess we can close it on out, Andrew. Thanks for coming, folks. Hope to see you in future KKEs. Have a great day.
Bye-bye now.